Let's talk Tanya for the 5th of Kislev of a leap year. In yesterday's Tanya, the Alter Rebbe spoke about the advantage of actually doing a mitzvah, in which case you are actually holding godliness in your hand when you're doing the mitzvah. And if you're studying about a mitzvah, so then you're grasping that physical object with which the mitzvah is being done in your mind. So that's also, in a way, grasping godliness, which is a real relationship as opposed to when you're trying to understand God or relate to God with your feelings, in which case you're trying to relate to God, but you can't really grasp what God is exactly because he's obviously ungraspable. So that's not really a way to have a relationship. And here the Alter Rebbe, in today's Tanya, the Alter Rebbe adds another interesting point, which is, as we said, when you're doing a mitzvah, for example, you're holding an esrog, so you're holding godliness in your hands. When you're studying about it, so then you have the esrog in your head, so that's also a way of grasping godliness. But there's another point, which is that when you study about a mitzvah, the rule is that God considers it as if you have done the mitzvah. Studying the Torah of a mitzvah is equal to doing the mitzvah. So since when you're doing a mitzvah, you're holding godliness in your hands, so the same thing as studying Torah is the same thing. But this raises the question which we asked yesterday, which is, what about studying Kabbalah? What about studying Chassidus? This is a question that I get. I teach Chassidus in many different venues, and people will ask me, what is the point of this? Why do I need to be studying about the different dimensions and expressions of God and the different worlds? What is the point of all of this? And Alter Rebbe says that actually, number one, in his words, studying about God and studying about what we call the Seder Hishtalshalos, which is the various expressions and levels and manifestations of godliness and how God actually interacts with creation, is a mitzvah rama v'nisa. It is a lofty and great mitzvah. And we know this because the pasuk says, V'yadata hayoim v'ashavesa l'vavecha. There is a mitzvah, there's an obligation to try to understand God to the best of our ability. So that itself also is a mitzvah. And in addition to that, there's another pasuk that says, Da es olokei avicha v'avdeyu b'leiv shalom, which means, know the God of your father, and that will bring you to serve him with a complete heart. Ultimately, the more we understand about God, the more also we can have an emotional connection with Hashem, love of God, and awe for God. And therefore, the mitzvah of understanding God is also an important mitzvah, although the Alter Rebbe says it's a great mitzvah, but one of 613. In tomorrow's Tanya, we're going to continue this conversation, and the Alter Rebbe will give us another 2 reasons why it is so important to relate to God specifically through doing action mitzvahs, or through, at the very least, studying the Torah that relates to the mitzvahs, the halachas of the mitzvahs.